Holly from Flow Movement Therapy, where we help active people with hard to resolve injuries get their lives back by teaching them to move better. Today we're going to be talking about the SI joint. That is something that's in our lower back that many of you may be feeling is locked up and is making things angry, and you're not having the movement that you're hoping to have in your life. Now we're going to talk about what your SI joint is, how we open and close it, and then we're going to talk about some different ways of starting to wake up some of that movement to take some relief off of your lower back. Now, our SI joint is something that is really frustrating because, it gets locked up and it prevents us from doing the things we want to do. But what we want to understand is what its job is and why it might get locked down in the first place. So we'll get to that by the end of the video. But first I want to talk about what the SI joint is, how we open and close it, and what kinds of things we can do and test in ourselves to see whether we're able to access that movement. So our SI joint is the connection between some of the lowest vertebrae in our spine that form the shape of a shield, and its connection to our pelvis, so that the bone at the back of your pelvis will be connecting together with that shield in your lower back. Now there's not very much movement in our SI joints. It's not like our elbows and our shoulders and our knees and being able to move a lot. This is a really small amount of movement, but as you know, if you're watching this video, having it locked down is not very comfortable. So we're going to talk about those movements that it does. So our SI joint moves and opens in three different planes: the forward and back plane, the side to side plane, and the rotational plane. Now when in the forward and back plane, it's going to open up like this. So they're going to move away from each other and push into each other. And in the forward and back plane, when we tuck our pelvis under, it's going to create space between the shield and the pelvis. And then when we tilt our pelvis forward, it's going to push those together again. So opening and closing our SI joints happens by tilting our pelvis and moving our pelvis relative to those spinal joints in our sacrum. It also opens side to side. When we take our pelvis, that side of our pelvis down, we're taking that side of the pelvis down and away from the spine. So if this is the sacrum and this is the pelvis, as we drop our pelvis down, we're opening those up by creating space between the spine and the pelvis. And so dropping your pelvis down is going to open it up, and taking your pelvis up is going to push them together. It's going to push the sacrum into the pelvis. So that's going to bring those two together. The third thing is that rotation. So if we rotate our spine and our pelvis away from one another, it's going to open those joints. And then when we rotate the spine towards the pelvis, it's going to close those joints. So opening and closing by moving those apart from one another. So we need to be able to do all three of those things in order to give a closure to the SI joint and opening to it, give it some relief. So we're going to talk about some different movements that we want to do. The first one is opening it from forward and back. We want to be able to tilt our pelvis forward and tilt our pelvis back in order to close our SI joints and then open our SI joints. So closing them and opening them. And if this is something that you're struggling with, maybe you're okay with tilting forward but not tilting under, I have another video, two sets of videos, one video on tilting forward and one video on tilting under that you can look and see if you can get some more tips on moving there. So that's one way that we need to open and close our SI joints. The other is that side to side. So we want to be able to drop our pelvis on one side to get space between those spinal joints and our pelvis. So we want to check in on our ability to tilt our pelvis from side to side, and maybe on the side that you have the locked SI joint, you don't have that range of motion. So again, I have a video on how to tilt the pelvis. This would be against the wall, and you'll be able to wake up some of those movements in your body, especially on the side that you're locked up. The last one is that rotation. So here, just like a washing machine, keeping your chest facing forward and seeing what that rotation is like. It might be that you are doing some funky things to create that rotation in your body, but see if you can rotate your pelvis as if you're in a tube and be able to create that rotation to open and close those SI joints. As they rotate towards and away from one another, they're opening and closing. Now we want to build this into something that we move. We need to be able to open them and close them through our movement. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a stance just like the width that you would have in a regular walk. And this part of our movement when we're walking is great because it has a closed SI joint on one side and an open one on the other side. So what we want to do here is remember to open or to close our SI joints. We're going to tilt our pelvis forward, and we're going to bring that pelvis up, and we're going to rotate it in that direction, bringing those two together. So we're going to tilt our pelvis forward as we bring our pelvis up and rotate in that direction. The beauty is that that causes the other side to do all of the closing movements. So it gets our pelvis to be less tilted forward, so it's tucked under a little bit. It causes our pelvis to drop down, and we're rotating in that direction. So we are closing all of our SI joints on this side and opening them on this side. And if I go to the side, this causes all of those things to close, all of those things to open. Yes. So if you're having trouble with putting all of those movements together, I suggest that you go look at my SI joint video, because I go through slowly building all of these things together for the SI joints, or for the hip flexors. So looking at the hip flexor video. My hip flexors are part of the mechanics that help me open and close my SI joints. So I encourage you to look at that video and work through those movements, the exact same movements built together to get to that destination. Now we said we were going to talk about the connection between your SI joints being locked and your movement. There's something that's called the great exchange in movement mechanics. What happens is if something is mobile, something else has to be stable, and vice versa. Something that's stable allows something to be mobile. Now in our scenario here, when we have our front leg bent, that's putting everything in a vulnerable, mobile situation. So it means that everything is mobile and in a position where it could get into trouble. And so it causes us to ask for stability on this side. The SI joint is closing to create stability when everything else is vulnerable and mobile. And vice versa, when everything is stable and strong and pushing us forward, we want to make sure that we can have a mobile SI joint to balance out that great exchange between the two parts of your body. So a stuck SI joint may mean that there's something in a vulnerable state in terms of your movement mechanics that your nervous system is saying, nope, we're going to hold that down and keep everything nice and safe. So if this was useful to you, please subscribe, look at my other videos, share with anyone who can use this information. If you want to work with me one-on-one, I work worldwide through Zoom, through the internet, and I can do any number of things, SI joints, hip flexors, foot mechanics, anything you want to work on. We can work one-on-one. You can find me at flowmovement.ca. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good day.